What's up, guys? Today I wanted to talk about something that I find interesting. There's some politics, some social issues involved in it, but it really has to do with the film industry, movies in general. I am a cinephile. I love films. Uh, and there's one particular movie right now everyone's talking about. You either love it or hate it. Very few people find that middle road, and I'm talking about Captain Marvel. So I'm going to talk about this film, not really into the story of it. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, and I'm not going to dwell too much on the film itself, but on everything surrounding this film and movies in general nowadays, especially now in this era. And first of all, let's get into the controversy surrounding Captain Marvel. For those of you who don't know, Captain Marvel is a female superhero in the Marvel Universe. And this is sort of her coming out party, this film, introducing this character to people who aren't really hardcore comic book fans, don't really know who this is. And there are several interesting things about this film and this superhero character, but even more than that, it's the Brie Larson, the actress who is portraying Captain Marvel in the film, and the controversy surrounding her and this movie, which all started with her comments about. I believe there was someone who was asking her questions about the movie, and she snapped at him and told him, "Well, I'm not concerned or with old white guys what they think about this film," or something to that effect. Don't quote me. I don't remember the exact quote, but people know that this actress it does have a background in being a feminist and having these types of opinions. But the fact that she came out so strongly with this attitude before this film was released became a huge controversy. This is not the first film to have this sort of feminist message, and it's been confirmed by the director, by the producers, people behind this, that this film is geared towards women and young girls, and it's supposed to be a film that you consider something for women's empowerment, which, in all honesty, I don't see anything wrong with that per se. There's, I don't particularly, that's not something that particularly really bothers me. The problem is if that becomes the main theme or the driving force behind the movie, that's where it becomes a problem. It's not the first time we've seen messages in films, political messages, social messages. But let's talk about this film in particular, and then I'm going to talk about other films because there are several issues with this movie that I do think are hurting the film industry overall. And it starts with this feminist, or what people call SJW, for those of you who don't know, social justice warrior message. There's different labels for it, but this is where people get divided, right? There's people who are pro-feminism and anti-feminism, and I'm sort of somewhere in between. I'm not somebody who is like totally against having a message. I just don't like when it's ham-fisted writing or heavy-handed messaging. I think that's insulting. I think people are smarter than they're given credit for. And I think when people go watch films, the best messages are very subtle. Sometimes you don't even realize there's a message there. It's very in your subconscious. Those are the films that do it the best, right? The more heavy-handed the messaging is, the worse it is. And people usually have a very negative reaction to that stuff. And rightfully so. Nobody wants to be beaten over the head with a message, no matter what message it is. So, going in, there's a huge backlash, a lot of controversy, a lot of people that refuse to go see this film simply because of this feminist, anti-male message, and it's really backfired on the producers and the studio backing all of this. So the reviews are coming in, and this is what I find interesting. Most of the reviews are negative, right? But there are some very positive reviews out there. And what I've noticed is that the majority of these positive reviews are from either women or men who are SJWs, as I said before, or part of that movement, or pro-feminist men. And you can clearly see, reading, listening to their reviews, that it's almost over the top. And like they're treating people as they're stupid, like we can't see past the agenda. And that's the problem. I don't have a problem with someone saying that they liked the film and tell you why they liked it. But when it's bullshit, or when, it's hard to tell people that an opinion is bullshit, because at the end of the day, and everybody has a right to their opinion. But I can personally tell you, without spoiling it, I'm going to tell you what I thought of the film. And this is what it makes it really obvious to me that there's an agenda. Because what I thought of the film is, first of all, Brie Larson as an actress for this film, right? I'm not talking about her as an actress overall. I haven't seen her in anything else. Maybe she is great at other things. But in this film, I thought she was incredibly dull. I didn't find her character interesting at all. There's some of these reasons are not even her fault. So I'm not blaming her for all of it, right? But she didn't bring any passion to it. And sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you can tell that somebody's not feeling the role. It's like she was asked or forced into this role, not by gunpoint, but I think a lot of people really fought hard to convince her to do this film. And it's not a passion project by any means for her. And I think she's dull. And I went around and I purposely went to look for interviews with her, appearances on like shows, talk shows with her, and I have yet to find anything where she seems like a genuinely passionate person about what she does as an actress, or even just a fun personality. There's nothing about her that I find likable. It's almost like she hates what she does, and she almost has a disdain for Hollywood and this whole industry that she's a part of. And it's like, nobody has a gun to her head, but at the same time, it's like she doesn't like what she does, and it just comes through. I don't find her to be a likable person. That's just me. That's my personal feeling about her. I don't hate her, but I don't care about her. It's like she has no screen presence in this film. And screen presence is a very important thing, especially for a lead role. She's not a supporting cast member. She's the lead actress in the lead role of a film. This is about her. And she's playing in a superhero in a Marvel movie. You gotta have screen presence. You gotta have somebody that catches your attention, that you're just watching. That's what screen presence is, right? She doesn't have it, in my opinion. There's no point in this film that I found her interesting. I didn't care about her. I didn't care if she lived or died. I don't care. So a lot of that is her performance. But here's the other part, and I don't blame her for this. I think this project was doomed from the start, even before she ever took the role. And the reason is, for those of you who don't know, uh, Captain Marvel as a character in the comic books, right? This is her first film, appearance. But in comic books, she was never a popular character to begin with. She's never been somebody that sold a lot of comic books or had a lot of popularity, right? So even if you've never picked up a comic book, everybody knows who Superman is. Everybody knows who Spider-Man, the Hulk, Iron Man, the X-Men. There's a lot, the Hulk, a lot of characters that you don't need to be like introduced to. Like everybody knows who they are. Batman. They're iconic characters. They're popular characters. You don't have to really go out of your way to explain to people who they are. And I'm talking about casual fans. Captain Marvel is someone that wasn't even highly popular in the comic books. And they've actually gone through several iterations of this character. You know, given this character a paint job, rebranded it, and it's no matter what they've done with this character, it just never took off. So to choose this superhero as a vehicle for a new Marvel entry film was a terrible choice, no matter who played the lead role. So in that sense, I want to be fair to Brie Larson that I don't think it mattered who you put in this role. This film wasn't going to be as successful as they were hoping. So when you put all your chips on the table for this character and you're hoping that this delivers in terms of this feminist message and this women's empowerment film, this was a poor choice. They could have chosen other characters. Better known characters, more popular characters in the Marvel Universe. Okay? So just in terms of interest and popularity, this character was just never interesting to begin with in comic books. And the other aspect of this superhero, this is one of the most powerful superheroes in the Marvel Universe. So that also makes it a bad choice because the character, this superhero, is so powerful. They have no weaknesses, no vulnerabilities. You can't connect with this character because they're so powerful, you never really worry about them. And that's the other problem with this pro-feminist message, that they're more interested in creating women who are so powerful and have no weaknesses because they want to push an agenda. And they think that, well, if we show weaknesses or vulnerabilities to these characters or character flaws, that it's not going to help our message. And that's also wrong, because why would you even care about this character if they're that powerful? And even the director and other producers have admitted that this is the quote-unquote most powerful character or superhero in the Marvel Universe. Whether or not that's actually the case, you can go back and forth and argue that. The point is, this character is way too fucking powerful. And I'm going to talk about that with another movie, but that's also a fatal flaw in this production, in this choice of this character. So the character is too powerful, and then you have this performance by Brie Larson, passionless. There's no redeeming qualities about her portrayal of this character. And the few good reviews that are praising her, you can tell. It's just they're trying to tell you something's great, and even though you don't, you're looking at it and you see it's not great, but they keep trying to convince you. That's what I feel. So this film was doomed to fail from the start, and for those reasons, right? They just chose the wrong superhero, and when you compare it to other superheroes, that's the difference. They all have flaws. They all have something about them that you can relate to, or you worry about these characters. You care about them because they're not perfect. Now, the most powerful character outside of Captain Marvel has been Superman. Superman is one of the most powerful superheroes in either DC or Marvel. But the difference is, even Superman, for all his power, does have weaknesses. One of them is the most obvious, everyone knows, kryptonite. But he also has another weakness that very few people even consider, which is a character flaw. And that is the fact that he's so honest. That he is not a character who is able to bend the rules because of his high moral conviction. And that in itself can be a weakness. Because if you're that honest and you're that your moral convictions are that strong and you can't bend the rules, that can put you in a situation where it's a weakness for you. Where other characters can break rules because they're like, you know what, the ends justify the means. I'm going to do whatever it takes, even though I'm going to break a few rules along the way or even cause a lot of harm along the way. The end result is more important than whatever bad things I might do to get to that end result. Superman, for the most part, can't do that. So that's another weakness, and it's something that makes him compelling to watch because that puts him in a box. Also, they have successfully introduced other things in these films. Not the latest films. I'm going back to the really old films, the cheesier ones with Christopher Reeve. I think it was the second Superman film where they introduced those three villains that were trapped in another parallel universe, and they came to Earth and he had to fight them, but they all had his powers. So now, even though he's one of the most powerful characters of all superheroes, now you've got three other characters who have his powers. So that evens things out, and they've introduced things to make this story compelling, which is good writing. So even though Superman is that powerful, that's an example of how you can make him interesting and compelling. And with Captain Marvel, she's too powerful, she's bland, and there's just nothing compelling about her. There's nothing you worry about. So getting away from that, I gave you one example of a super powerful comic book hero that actually works in film as one example that, yeah, even though she's super powerful, they could have done something. But every other superhero in films, they all have weaknesses. Batman doesn't even have superpowers, right? With him, it's, he can fight, but he's highly trained, and it's about the gadgets and his mental capacity. Psychologically, he's just really cunning. And there's a dark side to him. So there's so many things about Batman that make him interesting and why those films are good. In all these other films, Avengers and X-Men, all of those characters, all of those superheroes have weaknesses. All of them, as powerful as some of them may be, have limits. And that's what makes them interesting. And you need that vulnerability. But That's the problem. When you have this social message or this feminist message that you're trying to push above everything, including story, then their focus becomes, let's make the most badass, kick-ass female superhero possible. We don't want to show her weak in any way, because that's the whole point. You want to empower women, and how can we do that if we show these women in any negative light and give them any depth of character? We don't want to do that. We just want kick-ass women who never need any help from anyone, especially men. And that is why a film like this fails. Another example of this is Return of the Jedi and these Star Wars films, and the character of Rey, another female who suddenly finds the Force, becomes this super powerful person with all of these abilities, and just in the blink of an eye, goes from somebody who isn't proficient at anything, and suddenly becomes a Jedi master and can do anything, and has fighting skills that take many years of training for anyone else. And once again, you have a female character that's too powerful in the blink of an eye, and you don't care about this character. And that's a turnoff. People don't want to be beaten over the head with an obvious message. And that's another example of how you take a female character, you make her over the top, strong, powerful, and everybody could see this message a mile away. And it's insulting as a viewer. And that turns people off. And that's why Star Wars has gone down the toilet. And it went down the toilet a long time ago. Even when George Lucas still had it, the prequels I hated as well. For other reasons, which I won't get into. This video's already long enough. But now I'm going to get into some other stuff in explaining how even a bad film, right, or a film that's kind of over the top and in many ways cringeworthy or insulting, could still be an enjoyable film and even a good film. Look at Scarface, just as an example, right? Or The Green Book. Now I'm throwing some fucking really far out films that have nothing to do with superheroes or even with each other, and they don't have anything in common except for this one thing. I talked about screen presence before and how important that is. And my point is that if you have great actors with screen presence, they can carry a bad film. They can take characters that are actually not even great characters and make them compelling to watch. And they captivate your attention. That's what screen presence is. Brie Larson doesn't have it. Look at The Green Book. You got Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali. I know I didn't pronounce his name right, but he's one of my favorite actors. This guy's awesome in everything he does. So you got two great actors at the top of their game, and they are the ones that carried that film and made it so captivating to watch. But the film itself is cringeworthy in many half of the film. There's so many moments where you're like, you're cringing watching it, and it's over the top. It's ham-fisted writing. It's beating you over the head with a message, right? Social commentary, whatever it is. But yet, the acting and the screen presence of these actors and the way they pull off these roles are so good that you're willing to look past all that and you still enjoy the film because of the performance. That's where you can get away with it. So you look at The Green Book, and the message is just so heavy-handed, and they could have done it more subtly. And it's a lot of scenes. one of the biggest criticisms of it, and I agree, is this whole thing, and you see this in so many films that are also message heavy, where the white guy saves the black people, right? You've seen that a million times in these type of films, where no matter what, at the end of the day, it's some white person who steps up, plays the hero, and helps out black folks. That's insulting. It's cringeworthy. It's the type of things people criticize that I agree with. That criticism. However, I still enjoyed the Green Book. I still enjoyed the movie. Even with these cringeworthy scenes and stuff like that, it's like watching a train wreck. But, you know, as horrible as that train wreck is, and you know people are dying, but you gotta watch. You can't turn away. And in a morbid sense, it's entertaining. So when you're watching the film, you're captivated by this performance. I mentioned Scarface. A lot of people don't remember this, and you know, most of you guys might not even be as old as I am. But I remember Scarface came out in 1983. I'm talking about the Al Pacino version. That movie was murdered by critics. And even now watching it, you understand why they killed this film. There's so much over the top, hammy, cheesy stuff in this film that you kind of, once again, you're like cringing, you're putting your head down, but you're still enjoying the film. You're still watching. Stuff like even Al Pacino got killed for his performance. It was over the top. If you compare it throughout his whole career, Scarface was one of his worst criticized performances because it was over the top. The Cuban accent, horrible. There was just so much you could criticize about Tony Montana and the way he portrayed it, but yet it's a cult classic. Who doesn't love Scarface? Everybody loves it. But there's a difference, right? You can love this film, but you could still be honest and pick this movie apart. Almost scene by scene. It's just, there's a lot that's bad with the movie, but you can't help but love it. And that's on the strength of the performances, especially Pacino. So as hammy and cheesy as Tony Montana is as a character, there's a lot of scenes in this film you laugh, but it's charming. He managed to make Tony Montana charming in spite of how horrible this character is. Even though he's butchering the Cuban accent and how over the top everything he does is, you can't help but be fascinated with this film. There's no part of this movie that's not entertaining. So I bring these films up as examples of movies that are technically really bad in many areas, but you still love the film because of the performances and the captivating screen presence of these actors and what they did with these roles. So that's an example of films that really, technically aren't good movies, but you can't help but like them. But then you look at The Last Jedi, this film, Captain Marvel, horrible. Because it's all about this message, this feminist message, or this social justice warrior message that is the first thing they want to make sure comes through. Then everything else is secondary. We'll worry about character development, whatever. The writing, whatever. In comparison, if you want to talk about a movie that actually has a similar message, but actually does it the right way, look at Wonder Woman. That film managed to do everything this film did not. And the lead character, uh, Gardeau, I think is her name. I forgot her name. Gadot, Gal Gadot. I didn't even know who she was before that film came out, right? A lot of people didn't know who Gal Gadot was. But then you saw Wonder Woman, and she owned it. She had screen presence. She brought that character to life. Wonder Woman compared to Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was, like I said, never really a popular character, right? A lot of people don't know who she is. You got to be a hardcore comic book person, especially in Marvel comics, to know who Captain Marvel is. But casual people don't know who that is. Wonder Woman, who doesn't know who she is? Like I said about Superman, Batman, X-Men, the Hulk, Spider-Man, Iron Man, the Avengers. People know and have heard of these characters. Thor. And that's the difference. And that film, yeah, it had a women's empowerment message. But it was subtle. It wasn't beating you over the head with it. And it was done in a way that was entertaining, well written, and it's subtle. If you're gonna have a message in a film, it's gotta be subtle. The story and the film itself has to be first and foremost. And that message, if it's in there somewhere, it's just part of the sandwich. It's not the whole fucking sandwich. That's how it's done right. You want to take your daughter to a film about women's empowerment and to give her something that she could feel good about as a girl, as a female. Go see Wonder Woman or rent it or whatever. That's a film that does it right. And that's why Captain Marvel is a failure. Another film, just going to throw this out there, that everybody loves, including myself, but the character is kind of over the top, much like Tony Montana. Yes, I'm talking about Training Day with Denzel Washington. Everybody loves that role. Everybody loves that character. That film is great, right? It's fun. It's entertaining. But let's be honest. It was over the top. That character is a little over the top cheesy. And in a way like Tony Montana. Where you're looking, constantly watching this guy. It's like, come on. I know there's some fucked up cops and really fucked up people in this world. But this guy was, come on. You have to suspend disbelief watching Training Day. The shit was crazy. But guess what? It works because of Denzel Washington. And that commanding screen presence. You can't take your eyes off him. There's no scene in that film that you're not captivated watching. Even though the shit's like over the fucking top. So those are films I bring up just as examples. That even if you have a film that's over the top or the characters are kind of like, come on. You could still elevate the film based on screen presence and how a great actor elevates the film based purely on charisma. Captain Marvel doesn't have that. Now, I'm going to close this out by telling you what I thought of Captain Marvel overall. Was it the worst Marvel film of all the Marvel films? No. Wasn't that bad. I'm not here to tell you this film was an F, a complete bomb. I think it was average to just below average. And there were good parts in the film that actually kept this film from being a complete bomb. The best parts of this film have nothing to do with the character of Captain Marvel or Brie Larson. It was Samuel Jackson and, yes, a cat. If you watch this film, you'll know what I'm talking about. They kind of steal the film. and elevate this film to a better spot. Without that, this film would have bombed completely. So that's what I think of the film. And in just if I was going to grade this film, it's probably a C at best. And it's because of, like I said, Samuel Jackson, this cat, and a couple of other scenes that were okay, right? But I couldn't care less about this character. I don't think there's going to be a lot of people walking away from this movie and saying to themselves, I can't wait to see Captain Marvel on the screen again. And this feminist message, it's destroying these films. Anytime you see this shit come into play, these films bomb. Unless you do it subtly, like they did with Wonder Woman. Or you have great actors that can elevate this film above the mess, the garbage. So that's what I think of the movie. I only wanted to talk about this because it's more than just a commentary on this film. It's really about all of this political stuff and the social commentary surrounding this film and the controversy surrounding this movie. Everybody's talking about it now, and I just wanted to put my 2 cents out there. So I'm interested to know what you guys think. Do you agree or disagree with me? Did you see the film? What do you think of it? I look forward to your comments.